本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。I miss you.
Man of Steel again.
Again,
second time.
Director's extended edition of Batman vs Superman.
Oh, that seems like a big improvement, to be honest.
That was, yes, the movie
from what I've heard. Yeah.
Well, I think it also breaks it into, it's two 90-minute movies really that are stacked back to back.
Sure.
It's a double feature.
Yeah, and so like that arc, that structure of it becomes much more apparent in the 3-hour cut, whereas like they definitely did. It's weird. The movies are bloated, but sometimes you just can't do anything about it. Like you're trying to pare it down. The 10 minutes they saved off running time in places just make parts of it feel flat and incoherent.
Yeah, right, right. That is, I was trying to figure out for the Snyder Cut where you would even cut it as like a halfway point if you wanted to do a 2020 and then a 2021 release or whatever. And there just isn't a place. Like the first half of that movie would feel flat because of the expectations of moviegoers who want a big climactic battle that feels exciting and feels like that sets the stage for the second film or whatever. And I feel like BVS is very similar for sure. I've only seen that extended version. I didn't see the theatrical cut. So
the theatrical cut is really, really eager to get to the fucking Batman versus Superman fight, which I understand from a marketing standpoint why.
Sure.
But it's not actually the narrative. It is a side detour in the
world of what the political moment is post Superman's arrival and destruction of most of Metropolis and the Zod fight. That stuff's interesting. That stuff is like, also, I guess the thing that I'd heard is missing is straight up the opening sequence where Superman gets like framed.
Yeah.
It's just not in the original?
They build that out way more clearly as to what all has happened.
Okay. We're having some Snyder talk. Right into it.
I'll let Rob say what he told me already.
So I didn't watch the Snyder Cut yet because obviously I had to go and refresh myself on Man of Steel and watch the director's cut of Batman vs Superman.
I just can't. Right. We made this comment on the podcast, but I was a lot of conversation was happening about this in our Discord, and just Rob didn't want to disclose to everybody that he was also going on a Snyder journey, and I wish I had known.
It's very funny.
A journey.
We all go on our own. Yeah, we all go into the Snyderverse in different ways.
Sure enough.
I'm not gonna lie. I really liked Man of Steel again. I was like, this movie's good.
Yeah,
it was all right.
Austin and I came down on the, there's some problems with the first 2/3 is all right.
Yeah, I think,
and even the fight scene with Zod is like a good fight scene. It's just like,
fight scene's great.
It just like ideologically ends in a weird place.
I even like that stuff. I just wish the rest of the film was aligned with it a little bit better. I wish that there had been a line drawn more clearly from I keep saying this, from one Superman to another one, that like it feels so much like there are different takes on what Superman is, and I think you can do that work. The movie just doesn't do it, and maybe that got cut. Maybe that got that worked the quiet. I don't know.
The Man of Steel. So now we need extended cuts for all the movies so we can like really figure out.
Yeah,
the Man of Steel.
The weird thing is like Snyder fixates sometimes on getting specific famous comic frames into his pictures, and that can be a problem because like sometimes that shot to get there requires tonally shifting the movie, or that's a famous frame in the context of an issue of a comic, but like just throwing it in here doesn't do
anything. Yeah,
well, right. It's also that David Goyer, who like worked with Nolan on the scripts for all the Batman movies, whereas like I have no problems with Nolan, but Nolan seems to like recognize at times like, all right, like I'm like Goyer's like very like dedicated to like just adapting comic arcs, and like then he gets paired with Snyder, who is just like, I'll just do that visually, and they just like both bring out like their worst impulses, whereas like Nolan seemed to be able to like get away from that with the Batman movies that he worked with Goyer on. Goyer's a hack. I fucking hate that guy.
Oh, damn.
He works on he's just like the quintessential like, hey, there's a comic movie, like, better hire David Goyer to write your screenplay that's not going to get made.
Yeah. I think the other thing that bugs me about Snyder is that he actually has a facility with two things. He's actually really good at small, quiet superhero moments and what it is to have superheroes just existing in the world. And he's really good with the like ridiculous, over-the-top operatic stuff. He cannot bridge the two. There's no rising action. There's no sense of the two scales existing together in the world. And so it just feels like Man of Steel is really good, really good, really good. And then you're into a pretty well executed like apocalyptic fight in Metropolis, but you're just in it.
You're just in it. Yeah, it's just here now. And I've now said this so many times, Rob, but the thing that's so strange to me about Man of Steel that sets it that makes it a different take on Superman is that there is no Superman before there are the Kryptons on Earth. Or the Kryptonians on Earth, right? That like for the consciousness of that world, there was not like Superman running around saving the day for years, and then the Kryptonians showed up and made them realize, oh my God, this guy's an alien. He shows up in a wide scale way after they show up and say, give us over our dude. And hand him over. And that to me recasts so much about that character and what the world's relationship to him would be. And yet the rest of BVS and in the Snyder Cut also want us to have traditional Superman who's been around and saving the day, saving cats from trees, helping people.
People love Superman.
People love Superman, and it's like, why? What? Like,
yeah,
he was like, he's like a weird
Heroes
fugitive
Park exists in Batman versus Superman, and I was like, why would you make that statue? Why did you make this creepy fascist sculpture of Superman who only showed up to fuck up your city when the Kryptonians were here?
Totally, and that stuff just feels so disjointed, and I just wish there had been, maybe what there needed to be was a fifth Superman in that movie. One who bridged the one who decided it was time to finally, start doing things, and the one who the things that he does is snap necks and break buildings. Anyway, I'm excited for you to get
Smallville fit into all of this.
Different continuity. Or do you mean the location? Because it's in Man of Steel. It's a major location in Man of Steel.
I meant the TV show, but yeah.
Yeah.
But also, it's only in the Snyderverse that Metropolis and Gotham are like San Francisco and Oakland, right? Like, that's not the case in the comics?
Is that where they are in the
not geographically, but I mean they are
across
attached
the bay from each other.
There are other adaptations that put them within spitting distance in that way, right? I
always thought it was like a New York, LA sort of like thing. They were. I
always read them as New York and Chicago for some reason.
New York, Chicago is often what I thought of because Smallville this is the thing that's weird, right? Is that like Smallville is supposed to be within driving distance of Metropolis, right?
Right.
So would that be the Chicago?
Well, you do not,
Metropolis is the Chicago, right?
You do not have to go very far outside of Chicago to get to farm country.
So I think the real thing for me is that Metropolis and Gotham City are both New York. It's just one is the New York the day aspect and one is the night.
There have been plenty of things where it is like it's almost like what if one of them is New York and one of them is like Newark, or
they've definitely done that in the comics. Like Bloodhaven is definitely like like outlying like Jersey burgs.
Right. Anyway,
Metropolis is Manhattan and the burg.
This is fun. We should do a clap and just come in. Give me a second.
Robin's like, I'm going to go be a cop in a shitty outer borough.
Wait, the reason I wanted to do that was I just wanted to roll in. Cado, were you recording all that? Was everyone else recording all that?
I got
I
got all of that anyway. All of that conversations in there.
What's good, internet? We're already talking. We've been talking.
So now
Snyder
you've been hearing.
Out.
Yeah.
About
Does that mean we don't have to do it again?
Yeah, we don't have to do shit again.
All right.
We'll keep it in. I'll figure out where to, seamless.
Just
intro
zip
is gonna
that close. And
but
what's good,
but we
internet?
do need a progress. Did you watch the whole thing, Austin? You're done?
Oh, I'm done.
Okay.
I watched the whole thing. Wait, and then I went back and watched the Whedon cut.
See,
which is
dude,
trash.
I got
trash.
I got 2 parts in and was like, oh no, this isn't a 4-hour movie. This is going to be a 6.5-hour movie because I need to go back.
You have to go back.
Because like I was like, I think I remember some of this stuff. I don't know.
It's unbelievable.
I've only seen half of it.
Rob hasn't seen it yet, so we can't get into it. Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny how active our energy just got, by the way, because we did the clap, and now like before we were just kind of talking, but now we've done the clap and we're like, we activated show mode, and now I'm yelling into my microphone. The amount of times in that movie that Whedon ADRs in a joke, like the Patton Oswalt, I just used this on another podcast with the wackety schmackety do Patton Oswalt joke, where it'll be like, someone raises a gun and you get the shot from behind them instead of from in front of them. And from behind them, he could just have the dude go into a booth and be like, aren't you a weird person or whatever, to be like, to add some levity to a fight scene that does not need it. Like the bank scene at the beginning, the Wonder Woman bank scene has a bunch of jokes in it now that are not there. Either in the script or shot. So you need to go back and laugh. And then the biggest one, I will not spoil what the difference is, but you know the bit where Lois Lane says, you spoke?
Yes.
She says something completely different. It does not match her mouth movements.
All right.
And it's the funniest thing in the world. And the reason she has to say it is because it's not what she could not have said you spoke in the Whedon cut, because he'd already spoken, because Whedon interjected other jokes before that. It's unbelievable. I cannot wait for you to go back.
Oh.
It is such a fascination. It is such a fun thing to like unpack the disaster that it is.
Well, also because
I wonder to what degree is that Whedon being unable to help himself versus corporate is also there being like, hey, people don't like these movies as much as this is not what we were hoping it would be.
But the thing is, if that's the case, then it's Whedon not helping himself before by setting the standard for banter bullshit in Avengers. Also, just real quick, as always, fuck Joss Whedon. We should all be clear on that. Like, I just want to make sure that the audience understands that we also understand that. But no, I think that's like, if that's the case, Rob, if corporate came down and was like, we'd really like this to be more like Avengers because we really want people to have
did. Snyder has said explicitly,
energy.
Once they started shooting Justice League and they had the full returns for BVS DOJ, this is before UE, pre-UE. They were like, people apparently, we were really into the grimdark. These Marvel movies, they just take like a D-level character and it's $1 billion, and like your movie like didn't. So
you have A-listers in these roles. You have A-listers as the characters, and the money ain't there.
We need the bits. We need the jokes.
God, someone at DC was probably. Yeah, I feel like them tagging Whedon specifically in was the rudest shit you could have done in that scenario, because you were bringing.
I think everyone was kind of like his kid, had passed. The movie they were unwilling to move the release. Whedon was shooting his shit in March, and that movie was coming out in November, and they refused to move the date. So I'm not trying to give him an out, but it was one of those where they're like, I don't know, if we get the Avengers guy, maybe somebody will show up to watch this movie, which is not like the worst calculation to make. But I think anyone was sort of like screwed, and everyone was screwed. And it also turns out that like he was a creep and like just happened to be even worse. Cause like I was reminded that in the like first Steppenwolf fight sequence, it was like, right, Whedon is the one that added the bit where Flash falls on Wonder Woman uncomfortably and like makes a joke on it.
Yeah,
I was like, oh right, that wasn't in like Snyder's got his own problems, but like not that.
Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff in that movie.
Anime accidental boob touch in the fucking
there's an anime accidental boob touch in the Whedon cut. There's no. I mean, the biggest thing is like Ray Fisher got absolutely
is a character in the Snyder cut.
In the Snyder, he's the character. He has
it turns out the emotional core of the movie doesn't mean it's good, but like the movie.
But instead, it's in the Whedon cut. He just says "booyah" and is.
Oh no!
Like,
Christ.
Yeah, dude. Well, the thing that Ray Fisher said was like, no one else in this movie has a catchphrase. Like, no one else does that. No one else does the thing that makes them feel like a cartoon character. But you want me to do the cartoon character shit? Fuck that. Yeah. Anyway, I'm excited, Rob, for you to see it. We have a
honestly, like, I had a way more fun weekend than I thought I would watching these fucking movies. I will say this though, like. I would have watched an entire Man of Steel movie where the Kryptonians don't show up.
Me
and
too.
It's just him like coming to the realization about what he wants to do and who he is, just as he road trips across America doing good deeds and tries to figure it out.
Well, have Zod show up at the end.
Would be amazing.
Yeah,
agreed. And again, it would have leaned more into the previews for that movie, the early teasers for that movie that were like Terrence Malick's Man of Steel.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? All right, let's go. Let's touch the blades of grass. Become one with humanity in this transcendental way.
It is, his alienation from himself early on when he's struggling with his powers.
Yeah,
it is totally Tree of Life shit. Where
100%
like
is, yeah.
It all works.
Yeah, I was talking to Jackson, Heads Fall Off on Twitter, who's also the co-host of the Great Gundam Project, Abnormal Mapping. We talked about this movie yesterday because we couldn't do the Gundam podcast because our co-host was sick. And one of the things that they pointed out was that like there is a real autism like analogy happening there, in which it's about overstimulation, and that's like an interesting thing. And then of course the thing that happens is, he solves it. His mom tells him how to not, it's fine, don't worry about it, which like undercuts that analogy really a lot. But I think taken as a broader analogy of like, hey, it is hard to be in the world and we all have to develop techniques of like, existing among things that are painful to us. I wish that had gotten more time because that is one of the most compelling things about who Superman is like, hey, we have talents in this world. We have things that make us who we are. And also it can sometimes feel like the world is too much for any of us. That is to me like one of the things that makes Superman so great. And that Superman is supposed to be this character who elevates everything and everyone around him by being an example of how you can push through that to become to connect to other people. And unfortunately that just isn't given enough. When it's in the movie, it's really nice. It's really good. I think he gets that part pretty well. So I don't know. Also, the other half of that is Man of Steel is also a movie that says, hey, great people can't be leashed by governments, and they're at their best when they're in communication with governments, but basically can fly around and do what they want. Yeah, specifically the U.S. government. You're right. It is specifically the U.S. government, which like I trust the skepticism on the U.S. government. Yes,
like the entire thing is weird because I think to an extent, I think these films don't really know what they think is a really important thing. Like, Batman vs Superman opens on like Superman reckoning with a world where the country that he's a part of, the United States, wages open-ended war under murky circumstances. It opens with a drone strike in the Snyder extended edition of that movie. And a lot of the opening act of that movie is Superman not really knowing like where he fits in this world or what he's supposed to do. And so the notion that this government is holding him to account and being like, I'm sorry, you have to be subject to the will of the people. I think to an extent, it starts from a position of one, Superman is kind of a living god and isn't subject in that way. And two, I don't know that your government is the place to subject himself to. And that's a tough, but
and on top of that, Lex Luthor and Bruce Wayne are regular people who are also outside the realm of law because of being super rich. Corporations have evaded government control as effectively, if not more effectively, than Superman. Lex Luthor is not being brought to Washington D.C. to stand trial the way Superman is.
There's no scene about raising taxes on Bruce Wayne during
exactly right. Like
Bruce, the best line in Justice League is probably like when Flash asks him like, what exactly, like, I don't, you're Batman, but like, what's your whole thing? He's like, I'm rich. And like, it's a good line.
It's true. And it's true. Anyway, Rob.
But the movie also then wants us to know, like, when does the world know Superman's good? It's when he wins the respect of the troops in Smallville, where that one general's like, this man is not our enemy.
Yeah.
And he's like, thank you, General. And like, they don't salute, but like, they kind of salute.
Thank you, General SVU.
But then at the end of Batman vs Superman, they even kind of lampshade it where Bruce comments at the funeral in Smallville. He's like, the real funeral's here, and they're worshiping an empty coffin back in Washington. And Wonder Woman just remarks, they don't know how to honor him except as a soldier, which is a great line about just heroism and the American psyche. But it is not a line that like the movie the films that Snyder's making haven't completed that realization or that analogy.
Because they're also doing that in the way they depict Superman's strength,
Yes.
right? They also don't know how to honor him except as a soldier who destroys buildings and fights people in the desert. I mean, it's also true for Batman in many ways, right? The highlights of the Batman storytelling in all of these movies, we're not storytelling, but like the depiction of who Batman is probably that fight scene towards the end of Batman v Superman. I mean, it's both of the Batman focused fight scenes in Batman v Superman. It's the one in which he's taking on Clark, and it's the one after that where he's in a warehouse of people trying to save an important person. And both of those are like, oh, okay, Zack could have made a fucking Batman movie and would have gotten the action sequences right. He understands that Batman is about this style of preparation, this style of invoking fear, and it didn't show up anywhere else in that movie until those moments. And in both of those cases, it's like there's parts of those characters missing. For Batman, I guess we get a little bit of the detective stuff when he's Bruce Wayne, like going to the party and sneaking around, but we don't get that sense that he is like any more intelligent than other characters who are doing very similar work in both of those films. And then in for Superman's case, it's the same thing of like, it goes back to what you said before, the scale between stopping a dude in a bar and stopping an alien invasion there's a huge gap in between. And I wish we'd gotten a little bit of seeing him use his powers in that middle space in some way ever in these movies. And we just don't, I guess that's not true. There's one scene in BVS where he like flies down to a different country to save people from a flood.
It's his one
right?
good deed. So just we're reminded what Superman being in the world is. There is a factory fire in Juarez.
Right.
On the day, and it's going to interrupt the Day of the Dead celebrations. Dios mío! And so he goes down there
on the news, right? He just like
people,
stumbles into seeing it on the news. It's not like he was tuned in.
No, he sees it on the news in the kitchen because the kitchen workers have it tuned to like the Spanish language TV channel. So he goes down to Mexico. And we just get a shot of him pulling somebody out of a burning building against the foreground of dudes in like big cowboy hats and sombreros. And like,
yeah,
did it have to be the Day of the Dead?
I think that's just a Hollywood rule.
Couldn't he just gone down like? I think factory fire in Mexico, you probably are good. You could probably just, I would say,
solid enough.
just go down there.
But he needs the visual, right? Like the fact that it's Day of the Dead gives him the aesthetic spectacle because you can have the festival atmosphere. Like
it's like the church. It's like having the Jesus stained glass in the church.
Yeah, it's always got to be like, well, it could have been this.
Yeah, dial it up. Anyway, Rob, I'm excited for you to get to the Snyder Cut.
Oh, last thing,
Patrick.
Michael Shannon.
Yeah,
just
no
incredible.
disagreement.
Just the seething rage, but also deep sadness and grief in every scene. He is so fucking good in that movie. Like somehow humanizing scenes where most of what he's doing is leveling a city to the ground with his laser eyes and his super strength. And you're still like, damn, he's really going through it.
Someone should talk to all his friends are dead. It's it. He's deeply alone. His loneliness is felt so much more than Clark's in that film, which is right? Because Clark has people. He doesn't necessarily understand that he has people yet.
Go watch Michael Shannon
Larry
in,
Fishburne
Midnight Special. People slept in that movie. It's like the best Spielberg-esque movie, directed by Jeff Nichols. Did a bunch of good movies, and Michael Shannon is tremendous in that.
I'm on board. I'm ready. I just want to say Fishburne, also great Perry, good EIC energy as a former EIC and not of a newspaper, but I'm going to say I think he nails it. I think he's aggressive in all the right ways. He brings the best out of his people. He yells a lot, I didn't do a lot of that, but maybe I should have. I don't know.
He's like, stop chasing this bat thing, and he's like, I looked into like your Dropbox, and like I'm looking for the copy from the volleyball game, and there's nothing there.
There's nothing there.
The scene in Batman vs Superman where he brandishes the layout with the blank where the story is supposed to be the Clark,
so
just hit
funny.
me in my gut. I was like, okay, somebody on the script or like Snyder worked, like did some J School shit or like student newspaper, because like that, like we had the layout locked and no fucking copy.
And no fucking copy. There's nothing here on any parties in Gotham. There's nothing here on the football game. It's so funny.
Oh, I love the football game. The football game where the Gotham just fucking eats shit and Metropolis just runs up the score.
Oh, it's very funny. Anyway, it's been a fun journey. Let me talk about a video game really quick. Batman Arkham Origins. I put 5 hours into, maybe more. It was actually more than that, maybe. I played the first act of that game. So that's the one Arkham game I've not played.
Well, because people have, like, that game came out, the word on it was pretty down. Like, oh, WB Montreal made this. This isn't, as good as the ones made by what's the
Rocksteady.
Rocksteady. Yeah. And then in the intervening years, there's just been a drum beat of like da-doom, 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 da-doom. Like, yo, Origins is actually pretty good.
It's
and
pretty
actually
good.
Probably like then there's like people who go further that's like actually the only good one that Rocksteady made was the first one, and the best one after that is Origins. And Rob is doing a little bit of dancing here.
Gesturing right now. Rob,
I mean, that was basically when I was playing Origins, I was like, this feels great. And it's doing a lot of like year zero type stuff or year one type stuff where it's like, okay, Batman exists. People kind of know he exists and they know he's out there, but they don't fully realize what's happening. And a lot of the major characters have not established them. Like Penguin exists in this in-between space where he's like not quite the Penguin, but he's also more than just a crime lord. And I think it plays in that space really, really well. And I also think it's really smart too. Every one of these games had a problem to solve, which is how do you isolate Batman from the city? And Arkham Asylum solves it by just setting on an Arkham Island. And so Gotham is a hypothetical place that lives in the skybox. After that, it gets real rough where like Arkham City is like, so they turned the city.
They evacuated everyone, I guess. And so there's nobody.
They just turned
here.
downtown to a new prison. That's how they roll. And then the third one, they evacuate everybody because the big terrorist attack is about to happen. But yeah, so I think Arkham Origins also has a more satisfactory answer to this. It goes the Max Payne route, where it's just a heavy blizzard, and there's nothing particularly wild happening in Gotham. It's just one really intense night of all the crime-fighting devils are coming out to play.
Also, it's Christmas Eve, which means they get to do the fucking Shane Black thing of just like having Christmas decorations everywhere and conveniently playing certain Christmas carols at certain points. I get to a big like character reveal is where I'm at. I'm at the end of Act 1, which is like this is a game in which Batman there is a $50 million bounty out on Batman's head that was put on him by Black Mask. But also it seems as if Black Mask has gone missing or something strange has happened. You find a body in his bedroom, and the kind of first act is investigating that, or maybe it's the second act, depending on what type of act structure you're talking about. And you solve that question, what happened to Black Mask? A new character is revealed as a primary antagonist. And the fucking bells, the Carol of the Bells starts playing, and I'm like, yeah, fuck it, I'm here for it. Let's go. Give me a Christmas themed. Give me more video games set during particular times of the year and like holidays, and that stuff is so underused in games.
Batman: The Long Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that is what it is.
Great.
There's a moment early on where. You're going to it's right before this actually, and where Alfred calls you and he's like, "Sir, I just wanted to say the clock just ticked over to midnight. Merry Christmas." And you're like, "Merry Christmas, Alfred." And it's like, yeah, all right, sick. Like
Great.
That's awesome. I'm down. I do still feel like I don't believe it that the people in Gotham would all just stay inside during the blizzard. I live in Gotham. not everybody stays inside during the blizzard.
It's not like it's the first. If this is a place that's been hit by winter before, we're not like talking like it snowed in Atlanta and like nobody knows what to do.
I mean, it's supposed to be like a storm of the century
historically
situation.
bad. Yeah, maybe
it is.
Maybe
and
it's a cold snap too, so no one wants to go outside.
Totally, I believe that would be most people. But on Christmas Eve, I guarantee you, people are out there walking down the street to try to go into like, oh, I'm just gonna go 1 block away. We're gonna do a Christmas Eve thing, or like running out to I guess all the stores are supposed to be closed, which is that'll do it, and it's late at night. But you know, I've looked out this window right here and seen plenty of people in the wildest blizzard you've ever seen walking places because they have to go to work because someone's like, there need to be MTA workers out there still somehow. There need to be, people should be out there.
And also people going, fuck it. I know I shouldn't be doing this. Totally. Just don't stop me.
Don't stop me. News crews out there, like, there's people, should be people on the street here or there.
I think probably the time the third or fourth news report comes out, though, about like an entire platoon of police just being gunned down in a massive. I think at that point I'm like, I'm just gonna stay in.
I'm gonna stay in. Deck the halls.
You got this, Bats?
Yeah. So that stuff is fun. It's fun. It's I will say the thing that it doesn't feel compared to, especially Arkham City, is bloated. Like there is, I don't feel overwhelmed with stuff to do. There's still a lot. There's still a lot on that map, especially as you get deeper into it and you unlock more side activities. But it would be totally possible to be like, all right, I'm going to clear up the 10 Riddler trophies in each of these 5 sectors or whatever. That's a lot, but 10 is manageable. You know what I mean? I think by the time you get to Arkham City, it felt like there were just 1,000 of the fucking things.
Yeah.
It was not and they weren't on the map in the way that most of these are. Or I guess the puzzles aren't, but the boxes are. Anyway,
Arkham City breaks my heart. Like it will never, like you could never have convinced me after playing Arkham Asylum that I would not live and die for the series. After I finished Arkham Asylum, I was like, this is going to be amazing. They nailed it. They've got it all figured out. And then Arkham City came out and I was like, oh, so you just had to make it an open world type thing for some reason. And everybody is in there now. It's got the, like the big team up crossover episodes, like fully more than half the time are actually the worst ones because the villains are most interesting in isolation because 100%. They're like they're analyses of theme. And when you throw them all in there, it's like, okay, well, here's Mr. Freeze Zone. He's in the morgue. He's created his little ice palace. Yes. Okay, go fight him. Here, Joker round 1, go.
What's that fight about? You know what I mean? Like that's one of the things that's so difficult about Arkham City and Arkham Knight in terms of doing that kind of like mix of villains is in the comics, in good adaptations, superhero villains, like you said, are about themes and they have a space where every encounter is about something. But that fucking fight in the Mr. Freeze takeover of the police station in City is just about fighting a guy who has ice powers. That's what that fight's about. And I'm not saying that Origins fixes that problem entirely. Like there is the thing of like there are 10 assassins out to get you. But so far those encounters with those assassins have had the space to be like a little interesting in terms of like what is the meaning making happening here, right? You fight the electrocutioner early on and knock him out in a single punch, which is like, okay, this is about who Batman is. This is about like Batman is tried and tested. He's not just, you can't just be any gimmick having, bad guy and do some damage to him. But then very soon after that, you have your first fight with Slade with Deathstroke. And that fight is like fighting Batman, right? The whole thing is like fighting Batman who, it's a really cool fight. It's fighting Batman who doesn't have, the kind of, dislike of using lethal weapons. I will not say who doesn't kill people because this Batman definitely kill. The one lesson of the Arkham series has been there is no such thing as a Batman who doesn't kill people. These motherfuckers get killed all the time, but he doesn't use a sword or guns or anything like that. So, anyway, it's been fun to dip into that stuff. Again, propelled by revisiting DC shit. Cado?
440 Riddler trophies in fucking Arkham City. Like, Jesus Christ.
Oh my God. Are there more in? Here's the real question: are there more in Arkham Knight? I bet you there's more in Arkham Knight.
Fuck.
Well, there's not a world where there's less.
No.
So, I can't say that there's more, but I can tell you there's not less. That's not usually the direction this stuff goes in.
Maybe they took that because I just remember they were everywhere. Well, and the car, right? Arkham Knight added the car.
Yep.
Which I'd forgotten about.
The tank, really.
The tank. Yeah. Speaking of a Batman, who's
I ain't killing all these criminals, but I sure am shooting them with some powerful pellets as I make my way through Gotham.
It's a big armor-piercing stun ray. Huge, high explosive concussion.
Wait, according
blast.
to this, there's only 179 in Night.
Okay.
Good for them. Restraint.
That's much better.
Yeah.
Shout outs. Maybe there were more other stuff too.
Yeah, I think there were other collectibles.
Well, they just delayed that team's. I'm sure that team has changed a lot. Arkham Origins came out a long time ago, and WB Montreal had a lot of canceled projects along the way. One of which I think they were working on Suicide Squad until they weren't, and then now Rocksteady is working on Suicide Squad. But yeah,
there's no gameplay for Suicide Squad, but there was for
if you watch that trailer though, the trailer is like cut to suggest that mechanics. And my guess is the reason they went with that over Justice League is just it was easier to have grounded characters that you can build game mechanics out of. But
I keep thinking about there were the rumors years ago of like, they're making a Superman game, and it would be so fun. In my mind, the way that ends up coming out is someone goes like, so you're making a Superman game? And they're like, you could say that. And the answer is like, yeah, Superman's in our game and you're going to fucking kill him. But
I have no doubt that they prototyped and like, put games
definitely.
like a Superman game into pre-production because it's too obvious. But there are a lot of game design issues with Superman as a character. He makes more sense as a villain.
I still am I'm very like, I have a fondness for the Superman Returns game that came out on Xbox 360 and PS3. It's not a good game, but
they tried.
They tried. The thing of making Metropolis's health your health bar is like, that's not. I don't think that gets greenlit today. What I mean?
That was probably
idea.
in one of these pre-production, Superman games, and then they just go,
yeah.
The way you make a Superman game. Life is Strange, Smallville.
Life is Strange, Smallville. Wow, Cado, you have to make some people money. That sounds good.
That does sound good.
Yeah.
Damn.
He doesn't have all of his powers,
right.
You know what I mean? But you get them throughout the course of play, and you solve puzzles with them. But mostly it's about your connection to the people in town.
Yeah, totally.
Your family.
The powers also make more sense instead of don't nod, just like, we're telling another quirky Pacific Northwest story. Got it. Spin the wheel of superpowers. Which one is in this game?
They're going to make an empathy game with empathy power.
And I don't mean to dunk. I like to varying degrees all of their games. Life is Strange 2, like highly underrated. And
God,
I'm really looking forward to the new one. Yeah, as more time goes on, I get angrier about the. I forget the things I didn't like about Life is Strange 2, and instead just lean on the motherfuckers who didn't play Life is Strange 2 and get more upset about that.
Sinking into my chair.
Oh, it's so good. Also, did you when they dropped for people who hadn't seen it, they announced Life is Strange 3 ostensibly, but what is it called again?
Colors, True Colors.
True Colors. Is there also going to be a Life is Strange 3 is the question, because it's from the team that made Before the Storm. So
I wouldn't be things are interesting because like Don't Nod got invested by Tencent, right? Like they got a big external investment, so I wouldn't be shocked if they don't work on Life is Strange anymore. They don't own that IP. Square
does. Right,
which is why I was at the Square event that happened.
Right.
Yeah, and it seemed like what was being set up in the past was that it takes 2 to 3 years to build these games. That Deck 9 was going to be like, hey, like the alternate year, like so you can have Life is Strange games more often. I'm not saying this with confidence. Don't write a headline about this, but my guess is that they're not going to work on those games. But they'll still make games of that type. They'll just be something else. But Before the Storm was underrated as well. There are some really, really strong sequences in Before the Storm, and it has an incredible soundtrack.
And the way that that announcement went, there was multiple mentions of like this you can hop in this one even if you haven't played any of the others. It's all coming out at once. There was a lot of like messaging around like could technically have been 3, but they don't want that sort of like the idea of like, oh, I have to play the other 2, which is not
it's
true.
also it's also episodic. They give you can almost see like the mentality change as Life is Strange 2 was played by nobody relative to Life is Strange 1, in which I think this is also full circle. Like one of the things I like about the Snyder Cut is that it's episodic. I like when I get part 4 and me and Katie go, cool, we're done for the night.
We're done for the night.
We'll
come back.
We'll watch later this week. I like that about it. And in this one, they give you the option of, look, you can just boot the game up and everything is available. We'll never stop you. Or you can play it in episodic chunks where there'll be natural moments where you can just take a break or walk away. And I am absolutely going to play it in that mode because that it fits better for my life. But I also, I don't know, that's neat. That's a neat way of, I don't know if they'll do that in the future where they'll be like, all right, we're never doing episodic again. So we'll just ditch that format. But there's also, for storytelling like that, there is an advantage to there being like ups and downs that like from the storytelling perspective that come from thinking of it in episodic terms as opposed to having to crescendo over the course of a 12-hour experience or whatever. Whatever it ends up being.
Totally.
But yeah, that game looks good.
I'm curious about it. There seems like it is very much leaning all the way into the kind of twee aesthetic that those games have always like.
Oh, as soon as I was
basically
like,
had
the trailer starts, I'm like, where's the haunting fucking whatever that that's always the same guy like doing the vocals. Well, I guess the one that was about the abused kid was Sufjan Stevens, but it's always in that like
that model. I mean, this time we got straight up a cover of an in-universe cover of Creep by Radiohead. In the extended, that wasn't in like the trailer, but it was in like the post trailer talk about like gameplay showcase basically.
Well, they hired a musician this time.
Creep in Mad World,
exactly.
The horseman of the gravitas.
When's the last time we got a Mad World though? I feel like it's been like that like Gears of War was like
Mad World died suddenly and unexpectedly during an episode of Riverdale.
That's right.
In which Betty Cooper decides to welcome Jughead's dad back from prison by doing a sexy striptease Mad World cover at his biker bar. And this is to make Jughead happy, and it does not.
Huh.
God, that show.
Weird. I'm back on that show. I heard they did the time jump. I
saw the trailer. Yeah. I saw a war scene at a football field and said, I'm not watching this, but I'm happy for other people.
I have to I need to get back in because I ground to a halt sometime around the time that Jughead stumbled onto the dark secret behind every season. It's like, what's the dark secret? What's the dark secret behind their version of the Hardy Boys? I was like, I need to see the end of this.
God, I should start watching Riverdale again.
Yeah,
I was happy when I was watching Riverdale.
It's fun. Just so you know, the end of season 4 gets cut off early. It's fucking weird. The first 3 episodes of season 5 are the actual end of that season.
Because of COVID?
Yeah.
I'm glad they did that.
And then there's a time jump.
And then there's a time jump. And then the real season 5 begins. You can tell it's pretty obvious where the cutoff was supposed to have been. But just heads up if you're coming back into this.
That's good
a whole
to know.
Fucking thing.
I'm so far back. I'm like in season. I'm in season the D&D season.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I have not watched in years.
Wow,
Rob, there's so much.
Like insulting.
It's just like
the D&D season.
No, me and my wife just watched from the D&D season up to now in like the past like month and a half or whatever. So that just feels like forever ago at this point.
See what I love? I look into this call and I see people who are thriving.
Snyder Cut, Arkham Origins. We're free from the shackles, baby. No new releases. I don't need to play anything new.
A vaccine and no video games.
Old video games only. No new friends. No. Riverdale time. Rob, you're right. That Blacklist season finale is still on my mind. The one that they use like previs CG to fill in all the gaps. Incredible. I never watched it. Also, I didn't know that show had gone for so many seasons.
It's unreal. Like the amount of money they spent on it in the early days too. It's ridiculous. And yeah, their last season finale looked like Deadly Premonition or Dark Dreams Don't Die or something like that. Like that's the whole episode looked. It was just like, well, we got something special for you here
because of COVID. People should look at it. There's a season 7 Blacklist finale. It kind of, it almost has like a low rent Telltale vibe even here and there.
That too.
But the funniest thing is it was mixed in. It was live action and then certain scenes were animated, which is even weirder than the whole thing being animated.
Wow.
Love it. And there's no conceit. It's not like, I don't think that there's like a reason for the animation, you know what I mean? In the
Red's
world,
in a coma and is dreaming what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how we end up Tommy Westfalling the entire Blacklist.
Oh, that'd be very funny. Yeah. We should take a break because even though we haven't gone for a long time, we have gone for a long time. So let's take a quick break. We talk about other stuff that's maybe more relevant than old Riverdale or old Zack Snyder movies or whatever else.
Who's to stop us?
10-year-old Batman games, whatever it is now. I don't know, like 6, right? Anyway, let's take that break. All right, we are back. Anyone play anything more relevant than the shit I did?
Evil Within 1, baby.
Oh my god.
Look, I guess I can't fault you for that because they didn't like 20 games on Game Pass for Bethesda, but not Evil Within 2. And I like it was the day that I said
people need to experience the Evil Within 2 the way it is meant to be experienced as a sequel to the original game. They're just trying to protect your experience. Not that I'm sure that's an experience to protect.
I told you. I
am not really digging it.
It's as if Shinji Mikami was like, was the designer of Resident Evil 4. And then with Evil Within, he said, and nothing has happened since that game came out. Time to make my sequel to Resident Evil 4. And it feels like a game. Like it's Resident Evil 4, but darker, more violent. But it is that game without any acknowledgement of like the history and legacy of it and how it like redefined like a lot of like third person action survival horror games. It feels it's a shinier, archaic, more violent RE4, which is what it felt at the time, and I'm sure it feels more acutely 8 years later or whatever it is.
And the thing is like. Now, I love creepy gothic mental hospital horror.
Yep.
I'm all here for that. Is it problematic? Of course. But is it a
problematic?
Like,
Rob is here to acknowledge the problems, but also to be here.
Yeah. But the problem, like, it's inert here. That's what's like, all these tropes are coming out, and it's like, oh, these are just stock tropes. And that's how they feel. It's a weird thing. Like, you can have a thing that feels like classic and familiar, but also still like terrifying. Or you can have it where it just feels like it came out of a prop room somewhere. And that's kind of how a lot of Evil Within feels, where it's like, oh man, I bet imagine this mental hospital, but fucked up. And like bodies hang from meat hooks, huh? Pretty creepy. And it's so cliche. It
feels like you've gotten in the car and it's like, let's get on the highway and go find a haunted house. And it's like something that's, the ones they set up like in the farm fields in the middle of nowhere, where they just buy things at the Halloween shop after it's closed, and they put all those up. That's what Evil Within 1 kind of feels like.
Introduce the shooting mechanic by replaying the Resident Evil 1 introduction of the zombie, but it's just set in a fucking shed in a field. Like, just like you said, literally, it's like, hey, remember the unforgettable moment where you first encounter a zombie in Resident Evil? We're doing that, but it's just in this open shed in this field, and also tutorial boxes are going to come up in the middle of it to tell you how to shoot this guy in the face. Yeah, he's a zombie, by the way. Shoot him in the face. But he was eating that guy's brains. Whoa. And so it's rough. I guess the thing that it does have going for it is so not scary that I'm like, oh, I play more of this. Because like, it's something I might love, but I kind of hate. Your character has so much momentum and mass. He controls so horribly. He's constantly stumbling into traps because he lurches to a halt, or he's like getting his ass kicked by zombies because he like haymakers through and just whiffs and then just stumbles around. And I'm like, turn around, you sack of shit. Like, you be on your game. But he's like, I'm not a video game character. I'm a man with human frailties and maybe a little bit of a gut. I get winded and I don't have good balance. And I'm like, same. And so I have rarely felt like this connected to a character where he's just like, I'm gonna hit the zombie as hard as I can. And I'm like, you go for it. Oh, you missed.
It didn't work out.
Good. That's not good, huh? I'm out of ideas. What about you? Don't have them. Great. And so that does work for me. Is that, hey, your character feels shitty and a little bit inept in the clutch in a way that video game characters never do. But it does make some of these moments a little more high pressure, because it's not like I'm just gonna strafe and backpedal and like get myself out of this. You get wrong-footed in this, you are literally wrong-footed and you're in deep shit.
Does it still have the black bars?
I forgot about
I am
that.
playing with the black bars.
What?
So
I believe
forgot
in the
about
vision.
this.
So when Evil Within
Completely.
came out, there was a big to-do because it has widescreen, 16:9, like cinematic. It was pitched as this is cinema. Like, this is why you're playing. It seemed fairly obvious that the game had technical issues, and like one of the ways for them to solve that was to have less visual image on the screen. They never said that, but that game didn't run well when it came out. It's probably you're brute forcing it to, where it's running better just through the, age of, the new graphics. No, not yeah, okay.
Only
I would not describe it as silky.
Okay. All right.
And the
That was not at the
textures,
time either.
the textures are a little bit gnarly in places.
So I was curious if they'd like change that. I know that like patch. It was like a whole thing when it came out because people just kept saying like, so this game runs like shit and it has, but this game is it just on opto, So I wasn't sure if they'd altered that in the re-release of this on Game Pass.
Yeah, it seems fine, but not impressive.
Yeah.
And it is a pretty ugly game. And not just because of like aesthetic choices they made, but just like certain things don't resolve quite right. And so they look kind of weird more than I think. Also, you have graphical artifacting, but also possibly a layer of fake film grain that just makes things look terrible.
Yeah.
Like
I'm looking at footage
first
now.
generation digital cameras being shot in low light, like that kind of bad. But not in a way that's evocative.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
there's
you sure that wasn't on purpose? Was it like going for a weird digital artifacting look?
There's I mean, I do have a quote here from some folks, from Pete Hines and Jason Bergman. Pete Hines, obviously Bethesda. Bergman was senior producer on this game. Well, it's meant to look like a horror movie, obviously. There's a film grain effect to it, but you'll notice the darks are very dark, very solid shadows. The art direction at Tango is fantastic. The lighting in particular, they're very, very precise about where lights are placed and where shadows are cast. Next Gen allows us to do things that are very cool. Hines, the aspect ratio. Bergman, yeah, it prevents you from seeing the floor. Anytime you take something away from the player they're very used to, it makes them uncomfortable. And so bringing the camera just a little bit, I don't know if you noticed, but when you open doors, he opens them really slowly. Great answers.
Yep.
He does. I've noticed. I've been like, is he not going to open this door? Because I'm like, I hit the button. He's like hesitating. Is he scared? That's a feature.
There's Patrick, you wrote an article about this back at Giant Bomb called "The Very, Very Large Black Bars of the Evil Within," which is where I found that quote. It's not your quote, but you're reusing that quote. And my actual note on this piece is like, damn, this is kind of long for what the piece is. This is, I don't know that. I feel like 2021 Patrick would not have given this 1,300 words.
That's a lot of words.
That's a lot of words.
It's a lot of words. Look, I had, I wasn't being edited. So
yep.
You edit yourself, Patrick. Occasionally you send something to Brad, but not these news articles.
Yeah,
so
not news articles. Yeah, real shit, like reviews or features or something.
Brad wasn't faxing double spaced hard copy back to you with like margin notes.
No. Also, I don't know that you're actually accurate. The opportunity to write 1,300 words about the black bars of Evil Within is actually a little more like occasionally I like to just overwrite on a very specific tiny detail, like 3,000 words I did on the what does poise do in Dark Souls 3.
Oh, you know what? That's true.
All-time favorite pieces.
That's a great piece, though. That's a real investigation about something that people care about. That's a quality of. This is the thing, is that's service journalism, but it's also a feature. You know what I mean?
It's true.
I just need to get one last thing off my chest.
Please.
The city's name is Crimson City, spelled with a K.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, it is. You're a member of the Crimson City Police Department. Like it's spelled with a K.
Oh my God. Shut the fuck up. That's very funny. That's extremely, I'm running a tabletop game set in my own custom city. I'm going to call it Crimson City. We're going to spell it with a K to make it cool. Cool with a K. Oh. Anyway,
I'm just imagining the headline writers just endlessly, like at the local paper in Crimson City, like it's just going to be all alliteration all the time.
100%, which is really rough with K's.
Yeah.
I want to shout out something really quick. I played Trash the Planet by This Game is Haunted. This Game is Haunted is the developer name. It is a short, 2-hour long kind of narrative idle game. I call it an idle game because the bars go up, but I do want to say my biggest complaint about this game is that if you lose focus, if you focus on any other screen on your screen or on your computer, it stops the bars from going up. It like pauses the game, which I don't think any idle game should ever be allowed to do.
That on purpose or?
I don't know. I don't know. But if I click over here, it stops it over there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You start the game as a raccoon, and you have, I guess you're a crew of raccoons. You're 5 raccoons. And on the left-hand side of the screen, it says jobs. You're a raccoon, right? And the first job you have is gather food. And so you're like, all right, all 5 of us, we're going to go gather food. When you gather enough food, then you start recruiting other raccoons because they know you got food. Then you start gathering trash. Then you start sorting the trash into different types. And as you have the different types of trash, it goes into like a tech tree of like, hey, this will make me sort the trash quicker or slower or whatever. And eventually you finish that tech tree when you get a ton of enough trash of enough different varieties. You get to complete the kind of that stage of the game. And from there you move on to I'm just going to show you the screen. Maybe that makes the most sense. Let me pull this up really quick. Let me button through this cutscene because I'm getting a text from a character in this game. I know what you're thinking. Why would a raccoon be getting a text? That seems like things have changed dramatically. Well, they have, because in the second act of this game, it becomes a stock market simulation game. As the raccoons have slowly begun to take over not just the trash part of the world, but also the stuff part of the world.
So you go from
the trash part
subsistence, like hunting and gathering, to
this is exactly
inventing
right,
market
Rob.
capitalism.
That is exactly the point of this game. And then slowly destroying the world through market capitalism as you try to make, find new gains by scamming people. I guess it doesn't say it here, but our ability on the screen here is called Let's Get Frackin'. And it just gives you more trash to then flip and turn into more money. And the whole game is like a very tongue-in-cheek commentary on capitalism, a very openly anti-capitalist game that is like carried by its comedy as much as by its kind of mechanical interest in this stuff. I will say it was fun to learn how to break the stock system in this game and figure out like what my pathway was to having infinite money. But this is a game in which you are talking to you in the second part of the game are playing the mayor of the town, Crimson City with a K. It's not, I don't know if it gets a name. And you are talking to, your, like, kind of the head of the economy in your town, and his name is Money Baby. And he is kind of like a very broad caricature of like a Wall Street type, and then you also end up talking to like the head of culture, the head of religion, the head of education, the head of and all of those things are, there's very much like a dirtbag leftist dude who is, I think that's the head of education, is this kind of like dirtbag left, but like through the lens of the dirt being the dirt that raccoons live in instead of social media dirt, but he still has that edge. You have a friend who's way into anime, who you talk to a lot. I have seen the comedy in this game compared to Homestuck. I have not read Homestuck, so I could not justify that one way or the other. But that is the way of that is like kind of the heart of the game. I suspect that we have listeners who would very much enjoy this game. Again, it's called Trash the Planet. It's free to play on itch.io. It's by a developer called This Game is Haunted. And I the thing that I'll say for it is that like it is like one of the most anti-lib, anti-centrist things I've seen in video games since like Disco Elysium, in which every time that you're like, well, we could fix this, right? We could fix this by putting by doing tax credits or something. The game was like, absolutely not. Yeah, you can try giving tax credits to people for doing ecologically positive things. No. So yeah, that is a game about, it's an anti-capitalist game about the kind of move through economic models and history, and then more importantly, the ways in which late capitalism capitalism in general has been destroying the planet for generations. And what do we do about that? I think, despite its brusqueness about its messaging, I think in the end it might be more optimistic than me, and I don't think this game is particularly optimistic. So I think that it leaves space for an after instead of a we have to fix it now that I don't know that I fuck with. I think that it's I don't hate it. This is not a serious critique of it, but I think there might be a difference there between us. And I don't know. I'm curious what people think of it. People should play it. It's short. It's like 2 hours, and yeah, Trash the Planet. Those are the games I play. I play old Batman games and itch anti-capitalist, short idle games.
I played. There's a new game launched first on Apple Arcade called Cozy Grove.
Oh,
the new game from Spry Fox. It's coming to everything else: Switch, PC.
So not sticking to
PlayStation.
Apple Arcade.
No.
Interesting.
But I suppose, I guess in theory, it's cheapest on Apple Arcade, but it's $5 a month. Yada yada yada. But it's on Apple Arcade first. Most things on Apple Arcade come to Switch. It seems like a year later. Like that's part of the contracts. Yeah. So it's not usually the type of game I would play. I've talked openly about my desire to like Animal Crossing, and then just realizing over time that I don't really want to customize my house. And that's the bulk of a lot of the stuff that you're doing in games like that. But Cozy Grove is a life sim, in that sort of like same playhouse of genre. But I found the art is just like go look at the screenshot of Cozy Grove. It's really just really striking hand-drawn art. The setup is that you are a ghost scout, like a young kid that is being sent to get their final badge, so they can become like a properly accredited ghost scout. And so what you need to do is you get sent to this island where there are restless spirits. You're like you are in this world. You're a ghost if you like have unsettled business, and as the scout, it is your job to try and help these ghosts settle their business. And so you end up on what is supposed to be you just like helping one ghost. You get that badge and go home. Your boat floats away, and now you are fucking stuck on this island. And there isn't just one ghost. There's like a lot of ghosts, and they need some serious.
Why are there so many ghosts on this one island?
I don't know. I presume that is part of the story of Cozy Grove. And that the reason I decided, other than the art being striking, I've long thought that like when I played like a short hike, it was like, oh, like this has like an aesthetic of Animal Crossing, like different mechanics, and it's got a story, like an A to B. And a lot of Animal Crossing isn't, it's making your own story of like what you want to do in this world, as opposed to like, seeing a discrete narrative and seeing that from beginning to end. And Cozy Grove's pitch is like, yeah, what if like we have a lot of those elements, but we also have stories, and also, this is a game that you are explicitly not meant to play for more than 20 minutes a day. And we are going to have discrete moments where we tell you it's time to go away and it's time to come back tomorrow. And I was like, oh, like that sounds really interesting. Like I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot. And so like the loop of Cozy Grove is you get in, you are trying to accomplish basic tasks for the different ghosts on the island. When you complete that task, and these tasks are a lot of busy work. It is like, hey, like I lost my glasses. Like, could you go and find them? It's like, okay. And so you're walking around the island, you're collecting, different ingredients for like recipes that you can make for different things you can build. And along the way, you'll find the item that you need to bring it back. They'll tell you something about their backstory. All the dialogue is like really well written. Like these are really interesting, fleshed out characters that have a lot of personality. And every time you complete a task, it like fills up a little bit of a heart, and it says like, hey, you finished the story element of this character for today. And you also have a gauge of like how far that story is, like how far along are you in like sort of like bringing this ghost to terms before it like leaves the island. And every time you complete like a major task, they give you, it's like a ghost log, and you feed the ghost log to your Flame, who's like your friend that you have built on, has come with you to this island, and that like expands your camp. And so there is like a customizability aspect to Cozy Grove, and my guess is that is one that you can, to some level take or leave, but they've also built in mechanics to it. So, for example, different there's like a bird you can put into your house, and it likes to be like near certain things, but not near other things. It doesn't like to be near rustic.
We call
decor.
those pets, Patrick.
Huh?
You said there's a bird you can put into your house. We call those pets.
Well, I don't know. It's like a charm that you buy, and then you set it down, and it turns into a bird. And when you pet it, it like gives you. It seems to shit out like high priced jewelry that you can then use to craft other things. I'm just not sure if I qualify it as a pet. I don't know what my relationship is with this thing.
Familiar.
I think that might actually be better.
That sounds closer
suited to what's going on here. And so like, I don't really want to customize my house, and I don't need to. Like, the game doesn't make that like a requirement. Like, I've kind of put things aside, and maybe I'll get more interested as I have more options. But basically what I'm doing is I'm spending my time completing these little tasks, and then at the end, like, you go back to Flamey, I think is the name of the fire, and Flamey goes, yeah, there's no more logs. Like, you've done your quest for today. Maybe there'll be some more tomorrow. And you'll get a push notification from the app, around like, in the morning the next day. And it's like, hey, there's more things for people.
This motherfucker lost his glasses again.
Exactly. Yeah. And you'll go back, and there'll be some new ghosts, and like your island just like kind of keeps expanding. And as you also, every time it expands, when you find new ghosts, their area is black and white. And then as you complete task, it colorizes the area. And so it is really beautiful hand-drawn black and white art, and then that fills in to just like just utterly gorgeous a colored art as you're completing the task. And there's just like I really have enjoyed I played it for 3 days. I haven't done the stuff for this morning, but like the rhythm of the game, just being discreet and just like explicit, and be like, you're done. Like, set the game down. Like, there's stuff you can do. Do you want to go fish? Do you want to go collect things to like
to sell so that you can make more money. Like there's stuff you can do, but in terms of like pushing the narrative forward, the game, is very much like, we don't want you to just sit here and do this for hours. Like we're telling you that it's a real-time clock, come back tomorrow, and then you can talk to the postmaster and see what they're up to. So I'm enjoying.
There's like a real, like, what if Don't Starve wasn't haunted? I mean, it is haunted because there's ghosts.
Yeah, but there's no dying.
Right, it wasn't a survival game in that way.
Yes.
To this aesthetic. I mean, it's rounder than Don't Starve. I guess the people are kind of cubed off. That's not a Don't Starve thing, but you know what I'm saying.
There is a real cube element to all the character designs.
But and you have these big like almond shaped like giant cartoon eyes. It's very cute. It's extremely cute. It has, and the way you're like bouncing around reminds me of Don't Starve, and it's not like a critique of it. You know what I mean? I
no, but it's definitely Don't Starve adjacent
in this space.
For sure.
This seems really good. When is this? This is coming to consoles, you said?
April 8th. I think it comes to everything else. Okay. And it's just out on Apple Arcade now, so you can play. I'm playing it on an iPad.
It looks totally playable on iPad or iPhone. Yeah, for sure.
You can. It has controller support. I have not, done it. I've just been, you just touch and the character goes, and you double tap and the character runs, and all the interfaces is just fine. It seems like it would, work just fine on it's be a great Switch game. But like especially the idea that like I can play it on both of my devices. Like I can be out walking the dog, and it's like, all right, like while she's sniffing around, like I can open Cozy Grove and like just go collect a couple of things, put it back, pick it up on the iPad when I'm, like watching TV. But I just like the fact that it's over. Like part of these games is like the time, the infinite time investment is like part of like, I'm not going to go there. Like I'm not that interested. And like, I like this game is like, no, like you have to go away. And so that's a Cozy Grove. It's out now on Apple Arcade, and then just give it a couple of weeks and you can play it elsewhere.
Totally. Cado, what have you been up to? You playing anything? You still on that Bravely Default?
Yeah, I still am.
All right.
Okay.
Go off, Cado.
Look, that game is mechanically interesting and just like the most nothing story, or at least just like the pace it's happening. Like it's still very much in like nothing zone. They like foreshadowed some shit up front that's like supposed to be like, just wait until we hit this shit. This shit's gonna pop off. It's gonna be wild. Look, what's this book about? Who are you really? How did that country disappear? We'll get to that in like 20 hours. It's still very much in the kind of basic. We're looking for the MacGuffins kind of zone. We're getting all the crystals. There's some new jobs that I unlocked, which have mechanically kept things interesting. There's like a Beastmaster now where I can capture monsters and use their abilities. I can make the game half Pokemon. It's great.
Okay, yeah, sure.
And I've just like, I've been trudging through it because I want to. At this point, it's like I would have stopped already if they hadn't for I want to see where it ends up compared to the first game, because it feels like they foreshadowed a lot of things that are like very much like, hey, if you've played Bravely Default 1, remember this shit? Remember what happened last time we mentioned these sorts of things? Shit went south. Things got weird. And so I'm kind of, they got me. They fucking got me. I'm gonna keep playing to figure out, like, all right, well, how much does it hew? How closely does it hew to that original? Is there something actually interesting about here at the end of the road? But it's just like the thing I've been kind of dipping into bits and pieces here. I'm like 20 hours in now. But it's just like I also have been noticing more and more the like deeper I get in that the fucking map design is bad. There's a lot of
what makes a bad JRPG map to you?
It's one where, I mean, it's got a lot of backtracking in it where it feels like the thing at the end of the tunnel wasn't worth it. Like they'll make sure to put maybe a chest or something, just be like, oh, you went down the wrong fork, but here's a little something. And like it's never been like, okay, this was worth the time I spent killing all the enemies coming down this way. This was an issue that the original game had too. And straight up actually, I remember seeing over the weekend, AVB, who's written for the site before, post an old article that she wrote about the first one having this exact same issue. And I was like, oh wow, I forgot that it did the same thing. I think partially because in that game there was an encounter slider that I abused like all the time. There was like, you could set your encounter rate. You could set your encounter rate to 0. And I think that's essentially what I did in that game, was like, all right, while I'm exploring, I'm going to set this to 0 because it's going to be too annoying when I'm backtracking to run into a million enemies, because that was still random encounters in that one. In this one, it's not random encounters anymore. Like, you see the enemies walking around in the world, and so you can like physically avoid them by running around them and trying to run away when they try to attack you. And eventually, when you level up, they'll start running away. They'll start running away from you once you've like leveled up past like whatever their level is. So it's less tedious in that sense, but it still doesn't feel great to like get to the end of a fork and be like, well, this is a potion, yay, or some shit like that, you know? I think it's very funny playing this game. I'm also playing Final Fantasy VII at the same time. I've been streaming that like weekly.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
I have very different frustrations with that game's maps layouts, where it's like visually very confusing sometimes, where there's holes, because it's basically a flat image that you are walking a 3D character around a path, right? Like, it's not like a 3D environment for that 3D character, so it's kind of hard to parse sometimes where their paths are. But something that game mostly doesn't do. There was one part where it kind of did this though, is have that same sort of backtracking issue of just like, if you go down a path, it's like if there's a secret area, it ends up being like, oh, there's this really cool weapon at the end, or like, oh, I like got something very useful right here that's going to be useful, and the offshoot is never that long. This one in Bravely Default, all the offshoots in this game feel like they're long enough that you're like, oh, I must be going down the right path, right? There's always that thing of like, usually you want to make the quote unquote wrong choice a little shorter first, so that right,
yeah.
Right, but, sure. And then I always like end up going down it, go back, go down the other way, thinking like this must be extra content, and it's just as long as the critical path. I'm like, wait, shit, what did I miss on the optional path back there? You know, you just end up doing a lot of back and forthing, and that's just ended up being like, oh well, now I know that there's probably not anything super special at the end of the optional path. I'm gonna keep going, right? Like, that's where I'm at this point. I just kind of want to. I'm gonna end up like blasting through it and not going like, not like nitpick, like not fully clearing every corner of like these dungeons anymore. It's just like the game hasn't given me reason to want to do that. Even though it's a little less tedious because I can run away, I can avoid encounters kind of easily, you know?
Yeah, but still, I still feel like that's definitely one of those things that's like, would drag out a time that already is feeling really dragged out for you, you know?
Exactly. So. But yeah, just, you know,
keeping at it.
Finding these crystals, trying to figure out why this city in the...
I think I missed the part where I understand why Cado is continuing to play it, though. I think that's
the mechanics are good.
Saying mechanics,
mechanics are good. The actual battles are fine. The amount of battles I have to do between in dungeons when I go down the critical path is like a perfect amount. And if I ever get tired of it, I can run around the enemies if I need to. But the mechanics itself of like getting different jobs, mixing and matching job abilities, actually playing out the battles, even the individual battles, are more interesting than the like. I'm like in Final Fantasy VII, I'm to the point where like unless it's a boss, I'm like hitting attack five times, which is like going through it, you know. That sort of moment to moment like battle stuff is really still ticking that fun part in my brain of like, oh look, I made this cool combo by picking these abilities, and now I can kill more of these things quicker.
I'm with Rob. I don't buy it. I think Cado is deep in like, well, I've played this much, like, gotta keep playing Bravely Default. This happens with JRPGs. Like, I get it. Like, I'm not. This is not a mocking tone, but like, I'm just saying. You're saying like, no, the mechanics are pretty good. I'm doing it a little bit faster. It's great, everyone. It's great.
Well, I mean, the problem is there's only one game with good mechanics. So, like, if you like the mechanics, if you're a mechanical gamer, then Bravely Default is for you.
Cado's new. He could have started a blog during the blogosphere era of video game criticism. The Mechanical Gamer.
Fuck.
I feel like that was actually like 4 different blogs.
God.
No, I mean, part of the thing too is that I've slowed down my pace on that game a lot because I don't want to play it as much.
Because it's
enjoying it. I'm not. Yeah, it's the story is not good. The story in fucking Destiny right now is better, which is great. Look, okay. There's interesting shit happening in Destiny.
Wait, what did you almost say? Mechanics in Destiny.
Look,
yeah, the shoot is good. I get it.
The shooting is good,
I like the
and
part
also
where you take the thing to the guy and are like, "What's this thing?" And he's like, "It's a gun."
It's a gun. You actually don't do that as much anymore.
What is the last I heard Destiny story was?
Well, hold on. They've sunset and vaulted tons of content, right? But now they're not.
Are they not doing that anymore?
Okay. So sunsetting was okay. Those are two different things.
Was gear. Sunsetting's gear.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So sunsetting was this concept. Yeah. It was this concept of like gear that you get this year has like a time limit. Eventually, it has a max power level that you will be able to take it to, and then after that, it goes away. There'll be new stuff cycled in and things like that. And people were really mad about that. And essentially what it seems to have happened is like they backtracked that, but only so far. There's stuff that has already been sunset that they're like, we can't change that. That stuff is already gone. But going forward, nothing else will be sunset, which I think was kind of the point the whole time. Something about the meta was a little fucked originally, and they needed to get a few things like out of the rotation for them to be like, okay, we're in a healthy place. We can design forward from here with this in mind.
We're not saying anyone was cheesing scum. We're making a universal statement of principles here.
Yeah.
Oh no, we just can't bring them all back. Code's locked. But moving forward.
Yeah. So yeah, they undid that sunsetting thing, and then nothing going forward will be sunset anymore. Vaulting was completely different, right? Vaulting is the actual content that was in Destiny 2, like the base campaign going away. That's still gone. Nothing's changed about the Destiny content vault, as they call it. Fucking Disney vault ass. Like they'll come back out soon. The
last thing that just listen. No, I'm not trying to step on the Destiny stuff.
Go ahead.
But I want to hear about the different Destiny stuff that I actually want to hear about, which is the last thing that I knew about Destiny was that the season of the Hunt, is that what it was called, was going to start after the most recent expansion, and that was going to be about Crow, who is a previous Destiny character, renamed because of circumstances. Did that shit happen? That's the last thing that happened. That happened
kind of concurrently with the launch of Beyond Light. It was like 2 or 3 weeks after the campaign launched, then the season of the Hunt began. That was neat to see kind of that character who, spoilers, I guess, if you haven't played
no, we don't need to get into those.
Okay. But it was interesting to see
it's the new shit that you want to get into.
So at this
we don't
point,
need to go out of our way to spoil that. I'm trying to avoid it.
No, at this point right now, the new shit is like, they had this whole like, the fucking pyramids are here. What are we gonna do? The pyramid ships, the like kind of mysterious fifth like faction, is in the solar system, and the Cabal was one of the original big space marine turtle things.
Type. Right. Yeah.
Their homeworld was destroyed by these ships, so the people who are left in our world are like, we gotta gear up. We're gonna go on the offensive here. And they come to the Guardians being like, yo, you want to have an alliance? You want to like team up against the pyramid ships? And classic, like, all right, everything seems, we're going to have an alliance. And then the person offering the alliance is like, all right, then bow. It's like, this isn't really like...
That's not an alliance.
Yeah, exactly. They're not offering a line. They're like, yeah, you be my subjects. That's how we're going to be allied.
Yeah,
like,
that's a different part of the menu in the diplomatic interface. Like, that's absurd.
So Zavala, the Titan leader of the Vanguard, is like, nah, fuck that. So instead, what we do is we fucking interrupt their... They're trying to gather forces to go against the pyramid ships. And what they do is they do this ritual combat thing where different cabal that are in the system like fight against each other. And so like we could like sit back and be chill about this. It's like whatever, like they're not coming for us. Like we don't have any, like let them do their ritual combat shit. Except instead we're in here like wreaking havoc and like killing a bunch of cabal because Saladin, who usually runs the iron banner. Jesus
Iron
Christ.
Banner,
I haven't played the Iron Banner in so long. I used to call it the Iron Banana. That's why I was getting stuck because I couldn't remember what the original B word name was.
Right, but that's not
no.
Right.
Is like, nah, because after they go after the pyramids, they're definitely coming after us. They already tried to in the Red War, which is content that isn't in the game anymore. So like,
right,
for everyone who was there, and understands the stakes of like, yeah, the Cabal came after us once. This is technically a different faction. And
pretty easily beat them though.
Yeah. Easy, but yeah.
We handled it.
We handled
one.
it.
They took my light away. I leveled back up, beat them.
Yeah,
what?
beat them.
I shot a bunch of dudes.
I just had to shoot a bunch of dudes. I handled that.
But so ultimately, Saladin's like, nah, we have to disrupt them. We can't let them gather. Like, we can't let them coalesce under this one faction because right now they're all like most of the other enemy like races, quote unquote, are factionalized extremely. Like none of them have consolidated under one banner. Which
except the Vex also not even like that.
Even the fucking Vex have factions. Yes, there's factions that are like, we're going to.
Those are just time robots. I thought they were all kind of.
They're mostly hive mind, but they've split up. Like there are central minds. Yeah, exactly. Like
sure.
Some of them have been around longer, technically, because of time loops and shit. So even then, but like they're a little more homogenized, but they're not. They just seem to be chilling. They just seem to be vibing. It's mostly
all sounds like pretty normal Destiny stuff, though.
Hive and well, what's interesting is that the way that the story is being told right now is that there's a lot of kind of arguments within the Guardians like leadership, I guess, right?
You almost called it the government, but you're right, it isn't.
Well, no, I was looking for the word Guardians, but yeah, I guess yes, it is kind of the fucking Vanguard and who is within or without.
Zavala to make a decision about how this shit works,
right? Well, I mean that is technically like right before all this like went down. There was the government of the city included 3 Guardians and then like a bunch of factions, which have all disappeared at this point. So for right now, like Zavala might as well be fucking Monarch. Like
what happened? I was gonna say what happened to New Monarchy and
Future War Cult.
Nothing. I mean, they like took all that stuff out.
Space, Dead Orbit.
Yeah,
they got there.
They're gone.
Cool.
Wait, but wasn't Future War Cult the one with all the cool shit and the good worldview?
Well, I mean, good, sure, I guess. It depends on how
I'm a Dead Orbit guy myself.
They had a future seeing machine, and so if you believe that machine, they had a good worldview, I guess. But for some reason, all those factions are gone. I forget the exact lore reasons. I know the mechanical reasons are just like the things around those factions weren't very balanced. They weren't very interesting, so they decided to take it out of the game. But so, like, yes, he makes this decision basically unilaterally. And so Saladin is there kind of being like, no, we should actually take more action than we have been. And then you have the Crow coming back as like this new person who basically, because he he was resurrected recently, acts as this character that has only has like stories to go by as far as the history of these things, and like so is a kind of an interesting point of view character. And you have them, you have them interacting like out in space a lot. Like there's a lot more story to like the activities you're doing.
This isn't an expansion. This is their like seasonal battle pass, like, and new events equivalent.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that stuff normally does not have a ton of narrative content with it.
No, it's like they've packed it full of like each it's like a returning thing each week where like there's the war. They made a separate space called the Helm, which stands for something. It's HELM. It's a war room. Like you see them gather around this big war table with all the like Cabal ships on it, and they like argue over whether they're doing the right strategy. And at this point, it's all been very kind of interesting. It feels like they're setting up for possibility, like further down possibilities. Like they keep adding this thing of like, we're pointing to a world in Destiny where eventually we're going to actually either have playable characters in those other races or just be further aligned with them. It's like a shift in worldview where before it was like any and all Cabal. It's just like you're shooting on sight. You're not really thinking about these people as like actual like factions other than enemy factions, right?
Right. They're life bars that you decrease.
Exactly.
And that's kind of it.
And so like it's it's really interesting to see the story in game go that way and also complicate the organization of the Vanguard and the organization of the Guardians themselves, being like, even within the Guardians, like there's arguments being had. There's people who think we're doing the wrong thing. Like there's people who have had like fucking Amanda, the shipwright, is on a bunch of these missions, like on comms as like support or whatever. And her backstory was that her like mother was killed by Cabal in like a raid or something. And like there's like interesting nuance there about how she like obviously has a reason to hate Cabal in general, but it even then still has some like understanding of like, look, this is a people. There are different factions. There are different like reasons for doing different things. Like, it's just more, it's a more nuanced story than Destiny has told in the past. And I'm really enjoying it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is it like some of the past seasons where it's like over the next few months, more and more shit will be unlocked?
Yeah. It's basically
like a big final narrative.
Yeah.
thing.
It's basically like the season starts off. There was a cutscene of that, like the meeting where we almost make an alliance, but don't. And then each week, like you have multiple small like narrative moments that happen in world. Like, the characters are around the table talking. There are people in your ear during missions. And it happens week to week. There's a new thing. Like last week actually was really interesting. There was a fucking attempt on Zavala's life by one of these like Cabal champions that are trying to like curry favor. So now like you see the thing bleeding in a little bit of like, oh shit, Saladin's kind of right. Like we're still in the crosshairs here because we're seen as this like strong military force. So if someone were to take us out, it would be impressive to the leader of the Cabal still.
Right.
But also mixed in with that, you have the fact that the Crow, who's keeping his true identity secret with this cool mask that he wears constantly all the time, was there to help. Yeah.
I've seen this now. I'm like, who is this man with this mask? Oh, it's okay.
Yeah. For some reason, like, was able to help Zavala in that moment and get him not killed, but then also his identity was partially revealed, but Zavala's not 100% sure if he believes what he saw. It's just fun lore shit, It's good.
And well, they're getting the space to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Like I feel like they historically have only done big story drops around product releases.
Yeah.
And so detaching that from that is one of the things I'd hoped we would see once Bungie took ownership.
Yeah, the in between stuff, like between the big stuff, the big expansions has been really good so far.
It's also interesting because I feel like the part of that was just like the product is what people will play and it's when they'll pay attention.
Right.
So like we can't have a big character change or moment during our like seasonal stuff because the customers who are going to buy it and engage with a campaign are not going to see that stuff, and then they're going to feel like they've been left out and won't buy future stuff. Like they'll feel like, who the hell is this character, right? And to some degree, this feels like Bungie saying like, well, no, this is like a living product that has its subscriber base.
Exactly.
That's who we're making this game for at this point. If people want to jump on from campaign or from expansion to expansion, that's cool. But we're not going to pause the world just because there's no $60 or $30 expansion or whatever.
It's kind of like the point, the like 2.1, 2.0 or whatever of like Final Fantasy. After you finish the main campaign of the expansion, there's like those patches afterwards that still continue the story to bridge between the next expansion. Like this is actually more like that.
That's how it feels. It feels like you're in the patches. Yeah, sure.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's great because it's also like bite size week to week. Like in the last 2 weeks, I've played about 8 hours, and that has caught me up on the 6 weeks of content, essentially. Right? It's like really bite size if you don't want to engage in the other systems of like, I'm gonna grind out a bunch of light. Like right now, I'm taking it slow on that stuff. There's also a super good exotic mission, which they keep making these, and they're so freaking cool. That is like the scaredest I've been in Destiny, like actual horror show shit. It's cool, fucking awesome. So yeah, it's definitely I think if they also bumped all the light up, so like you won't be too far behind if you haven't checked it out in a bit, and all that stuff also stays for a year now instead of going away with the season. Like the story content stuff you can still do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, it's worth checking out, I think. Yeah.
I want to take a quick dip in the question bucket because we got some follow-ups and some questions we asked the world, and we need to hear these answers. Gaming at Vice.com. That's correct. Knuckles. We had a couple things in here from Knuckles here. Okay. I did some debate. So, Rob, I think did Rob miss this? Rob missed us assigning Justice League DC characters to Sonic the Hedgehog characters. Colin writes in and says, amateur hour, really? You can't just look at power sets. You have to consider the character as a whole. Knuckles is Batman. I don't know. In some ways, I think Knuckles as Batman is a power-focused thing because they both glide, they both punch. Knuckles.
No, but they both have like
things.
A growly and
Knuckles
pissed off.
Growly.
Yeah,
he's pissed off. He's not growly. He has a deeper voice naturally. That doesn't mean he's growly. He's a bigger being.
Yeah, that's true, I guess.
We have an alternative Knuckles thing here from Alex in Alaska. Knuckles is Wonder Woman. On the topic of finding DC analogs to Sonic the Hedgehog characters, I propose the closest comparison to Knuckles the Echidna is Wonder Woman. Gender aside, they're both members of an enigmatic race that hail from a hidden island with mystic powers. They're both masters of hand-to-hand combat. They both can sort of fly sometimes not.
It that's kind of varies between the inconsistent power set is a good argument, especially in the Snyderverse.
100%.
Learns to fly in a previous movie, but can't do it in the future.
It's very weird. Where I don't know. Eggman is clearly Lex Luthor. Rouge the Bat is Catwoman. I think that's
that tracks. For
I agree.
Sure. That tracks both in
Batman. I guess because you're right. She's a Catwoman. Yeah, that's like who that character is.
Exactly.
Like playful and torny, but like in like a thieving way.
Yes, it's literally she is a thief. Yes, it's the exact same character.
So thank you to Alex for that one.
Caught up on this Knuckles thing though, because I felt Knuckles as Batman like deep. This other Knuckles thing is like power set, sure, or like kind of like circumstance,
their
kind of.
Is so right though. Their history, they're both exiles from But
the personality is different.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman is not that.
Yeah. Knuckles isn't like ruling by fear. Knuckles doesn't beat up the mafia. He would though.
He's an explorer. He wouldn't. What are you projecting onto Knuckles here? You got your shit to work out, Cado. Knuckles is not the world's greatest detective. The biggest thing about him is that he's a big dumbass. So no.
Okay, no, he is a dumbass. But he's he's
a naive, which again fits certain interpretations of Wonder Woman. Yeah. He doesn't understand the outside world. He gets taken in by people who he shouldn't be.
He's like a grumpy Wonder Woman.
Needs to be stacked onto 2 cartridges in order to appear in previous entries.
Right.
Those are the only two ones we got on the Sonic thing. I'm a little surprised. And on the other hand, Jordan writes in and says, just enjoyed your hilarious discussion on what way do you eat uncut sandwich bread during my midnight lunch / night shift of an uncut sandwich with plain store bread. And were you here for this, Patrick?
No. I've seen some discourse on it, but I dodged this sandwich.
And while I agree it's a silly thing to be concerned about, I nonetheless have observed that I have a habitual preference from eating top down, and yes, I eat with a bite directly in the middle across the edge. I don't think it's because I want to eat from the top down, but rather I want to hold said uncut sandwich upright in my hands. Imagine a good 2-handed grip along the sides with the bumpy muffin top above my thumbs.
Yeah.
And thus I eat in the simplest method from the top as my hands raise the upright sandwich to my mouth. I believe this habit of eating top down carries over even if I don't have 2 hands involved. There might be exceptions. The exception might be toast, where I might on occasion eat from the corner, but that's still rare. Though talking about how one does physically eat, how do all of you eat cinnamon buns? I've always preferred unraveling them outside in, pulling the layers apart as I eat them, leaving the end with the central, most filling covered bit. Am I an anomaly, or does everyone else eat them like a bun?
No, you're unlocking the treasure. And it's like all the sugar and
is in the middle.
The candy's in the center, and like
bites in the center.
There.
Rob, are you sure you don't just take a bite from the, you face it parallel to your face and just put it up to your mouth?
I like to compress all those ribbons of bun into a cube and then just pop it in my mouth. Yeah.
I mean, this is a very similar follow-up question from Cal, who says, when you eat a meal, do you save the best for last or even think about the order you eat? And can you imagine not thinking about the order that you eat?
No, you have to.
I wish I
did this recently where we had some mashed potatoes and they were fucking delicious. And I was like, I'm just avoiding it. And I was like, I have a little bit. And I was like, no, I want the last bite, the finale of this meal to be this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will. And it's not always the same thing, even in the same type of meal. Do you know what I mean? Like feel
like when I have a side salad, get that shit out of the way. Get into my stomach. Like if I could just tube it into my stomach, this is just for health reasons. I'm not enjoying. There are times where we have a salad and then the side salad is just we gotta
get better salads.
No, it's just I eat a side salad with every meal. I have a little green, very small amount of dressing. It's just a dietary thing, that's just that food is hot. I want to get to that, and this salad is standing in the way of me getting in.
Right. So you go through that, and then you're left with. This is what I'm saying. It's let's say I've made a nice ribeye steak. Then most of the times the ribeye, I want a piece of that ribeye to be the last thing I eat, because I want to have that. But sometimes, let's say that there's a really good sweet potato with it or something like that. I'll be you know what? I actually want to save that for last. So it's not a universal, even inside of the same type of food for me. I'll mix it up depending on how well something came out. That's the other thing. Sometimes it's this steak didn't turn out well, or this sandwich isn't all that good. Yeah. I mean, I'm actually going to save the fries for, you know what I mean? Or whatever. But I'm definitely always thinking about.
Yeah.
To the degree that I will get not upset, but there have been times when I fucked up and gotten distracted and finished the wrong thing first. And I was that fucking ruined my afternoon. This isn't how lunch was supposed to end.
Well, and it gets complicated when you have meals in which it's the food is not into discrete categories, right? So
sure.
I eating a burrito, for example, can be a traumatic experience because it's
Did you say traumatic?
Yeah,
traumatic.
The rare I usually don't.
Patrick leads.
I love burritos are one of my favorite foods, and I rarely pay for avocado to be added because it's all right. So the burrito's $6, and I'm gonna pay $1 to get avocado on this. Not gonna do it. And then when I do, I really when you get that avocado bite. It is just such a joy in there. And if you don't if it's not put together correctly, or if you don't navigate your bites correctly, I want that last bite to be a little bit of everything and a little bit of avocado. And if you've messed it up, if you've Pac-Man'd your way down to the end of burrito and it's just a mess and your hands are dirty, it's just juice and a tortilla, and I'll still eat it. But it could have gone better. I could learn some lessons from this exercise.
This is why I've started to switch over. I mean, it depends on the place, obviously. Some places you're gonna get a good burrito no matter what. Some places though, they're not gonna spread that shit out evenly. I'm getting a bowl.
It's all
I'm
clumped at
gonna
the bottom,
control
yeah.
when I eat all the shit. Yeah. You know, get some
Or I guess you
It
could fork and
definitely
knife the
is.
burrito.
Oh God. Okay.
Rob,
If y'all
very
really
quiet.
like making sure that the fillings you crave are right there in the bite, may I introduce you to the fucking taco?
That's a different meal experience.
Yeah, that's
also
a different food,
There's
Rob.
different fillings
I'm eating
in
a taco.
tacos. You don't put
All right,
like the
let
same
me
shit in
offer
tacos
this
as
one
you do
last thing about the
burritos.
burrito then.
You know,
Patrick, to your question about the avocado,
Yeah.
put a little guac or avocado on the side, and you just like have it in that last bite, and you just spoon it on.
So that's what I've done. Well, one
Like
it
with the
sidesteps it sidesteps the extraordinary cost of the avocado. It's just we have avocados at home and we just slice it ourselves.
New triangle.
there you go. We got another one in from Colton. This is kind of a long one, but there's something, the energy of it, I think, maybe. Dear Waypoint crew, I just listened to the recent episode where a listener wrote in to ask what the proper way to eat bread is from the top or the bottom. To be clear, the top is the side that's curved and the bottom is the opposite flat side. Hearing this question, I was incredibly excited. Could it be that there are other people who've spent countless hours agonizing over this question? Could there perhaps be dozens of us? In your response, I was sad to hear that aside from Cado, none of you seem to have particularly strong opinions about this topic of extreme importance. As such, I figured I would submit my own response in the hope of making others in my position feel less alone. To give a quick answer, I do tend to start at the bottom rather than the top, but strangely enough, my reasoning for it is almost the direct opposition to Cado's reasoning. While Cado's goal seems to be to start off with the good bits of the sandwich, my goal is to try to get the worst parts of the sandwich out of the way first. This is the Patrick position. This is Patrick Klepek, get the worst part out of the way first position. I think most people would agree with me when I say for most types of bread, this is the crust, and I think this is especially true with sandwiches as the ingredients are in the middle. The part that may be more controversial is that I tend not to like the bottom side of the crust as much as the top side of the crust. Maybe I need to do some self-reflection there. But regardless, because I don't like that part of the crust as much, I make it my goal to get that out of the way first. But wait, I hear you asking at this point. You may be thinking there are bigger implications in this, and you'd be right. Because I'm trying to save the last possible bite for last. I can't allow crust to be in the final bite. So I eat around the sandwich in a circle to get rid of the crust first. As an aside, I think I usually go around the sandwich counterclockwise or turn the sandwich clockwise as I eat. But I don't think there's necessarily a reason for that. Regardless,
I don't know about that.
Regardless, this ensures that as I approach the end of the sandwich, there's a very good chance the last bite will be a good one. To go beyond that a little more, this applies to other foods as well. For instance, I eat hamburgers the same way, not because of the crust, but because I want my last bite to have a good section of condiments and cheese. And I have a similar approach to pancakes as well, since most of the butter tends to be in the middle. And as a last note, I should add there's an exception to this.
I don't think, per letter writer, I don't think there's a specific reason I do anything, but let me tell you all the things that I do for very specific reasons.
Being very generous with their time. If I eat a slice of sourdough bread by itself, I will almost always eat the bottom crust, then the middle of the bread, and we'll finish with the top crust, because let's face it, the top crust of a sourdough bread is hard to beat. And yeah, that's my bread or sandwich take. Thank you so much for bringing this up in the mailbag. Small things like these really make me feel connected to people during the pandemic, so I appreciate it a lot, even if something really inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. Thanks, Colton.
I want to throw something out here.
Yeah.
If there's a bad part of the bread you don't like, don't eat it. Like, so I understand. Like,
food
like
waste.
saving the best thing in the meal for last, whatever. And like sometimes, but
I'm not gonna throw away food. I was not raised that way.
Yeah.
Unless I'm like,
I wasn't either. But here's the thing: a lot of us were raised wrong. Like, let's
a lot of us were raised poor.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, there's a lot of times where like you're being forced to eat food that you're not even hungry. Where it's
I agree.
I don't want to eat this anymore. Also because I'm just not hungry anymore. And so I think there's a point where we don't have to like be governed by that logic of clean your plate. It's like, no, I've had the best of it. I'm nourished.
I don't think it's the thing that it's bad. It's that it is, of the two options, lesser, right? The lesser crust is the bottom crust, and the top crust is better crust.
I think if you're spinning your sandwich around like a top to avoid having the last bite be crust, I would maybe just cut the crust off.
Okay, but what if you just want to eat? You do want to eat the crust. It's not,
But not the wrong
sometimes.
crust.
No, I think that Colton wants to eat the whole sandwich.
I think it's the same as like I like the side salad, but I don't want to get rid of the side salad. I want to eat it. I just want to eat it first, so I can move on to the stuff that I like more. And so I agree. I guess he needs a follow up. How would he feel about cutting off that crust? Like,
please let us know, Colton.
Like, do you feel strongly about eating the crust, or is this like a wasteful food situation? And then I think maybe we might be able to diagnose this more fully with some clarification.
Also, is it just me, or does the crust isn't that like kind of protective for your hands and getting like material in it?
What?
Excuse what?
Keep going.
Prophylactic crust theory.
Like,
yes, lay it on me.
Protective.
The bread is thicker there, so like things tend to leak less if it's there than when it's not.
Like an eyebrow situation.
Yeah, almost.
Like
it keeps the sandwich juice contained. So I'm scared about this whole eating all the crust first.
So if the condiments are just soaking your sandwich, just inundating the bread.
I mean, sometimes you got a tomato in there, and the tomato's gonna, it's gonna leak. It's gonna leak. It's a fucking tomato. It's like 70% water.
You walk away from your
son. We live in a world that has sauces.
Oh,
keep your hands clean.
Yeah, that's the point of the sandwich.
Cado makes me a sandwich. If I walk away to go to the bathroom, when I come back, it's just leaking everywhere.
It's just disintegrating.
I also have another
if the crust is still on. If the crust is still on there, you're good.
Yeah, I guess so. I have another update here. God, this is wow. Okay, actually, I just want to re-say this. You have to use the word question in your subject, or else I will not see your question. And I say this because I went to go get some clarification on the pickle situation. Was everyone here for the pickle situation?
Yep.
Patrick, did you miss the pickle situation?
I think I missed the pickle. What's the summation? What's the one-liner?
Someone bought
pickles are a social construct.
Oh, no. I was here. Yes. What do you do with pickles that are going to expire?
They're about to expire. And also, why are these pickles expiring so quick? You may have missed the follow-up in which we learned there were two types of pickle in Sweden, called a salt gurka and then a different type of gurka.
Okay.
I forget.
Yes, I did not. I missed this.
So apparently, the other type of, just so you know, one of them is like what we would think of as a pickle, and the other one is just kind of like in a bunch of salt water, I want to say, that like gives it some flavor and like does something else, but it doesn't stay good. From the Waypoint Discord, someone sent in a message saying, I sent in the original pickle question. And I'm apparently also from the same city as Jacob, who also emailed in. So hi, if you're here. It was actually Burke Gurkha rather than Salt Gurkha. I will say though, the Salt Gurkha theory makes a lot more sense, but I did double check with my mother the other day, and she said, 1, it was Burke Gurkha, which is pickled, and 2, she believes the jar was actually larger than 2 liters. I will say that we've never encountered this again, and I buy Burke Gurkha on a weekly basis. I will also recommend putting some Salt Gurkha on ham and cheese. Sure. Totally.
That sounds great.
Absolutely. We also got some pickle clarification because there was some debate. Patrick, I think you missed this one, which is we weren't sure what the difference between fermentation and pickling was. In my mind, a pickle is a fermented cucumber, but apparently that's not necessarily exactly true. Hi, gamingadvice.com. That's okay, sure. I'm a former professional chef who's read several books on pickles, so now is my time to shine and clarify some of the confusion about pickles in episode 380. Pickle is a frustratingly inexact word in English. It can refer to food preserved in vinegar, food preserved in through lacto-fermentation, the process of doing either, or cucumbers preserved through either method. Vinegar pickling is when you immerse food in a solution of salt and vinegar, usually also sugar and spices. Most supermarket pickles, including the divisive bread and butter, are of this kind. Lacto-fermented pickles are food that's been immersed in a saline solution around 2 to 3% salt and let sit at room temperature. This allows for lactic acid bacteria, LAB, to break down the food substrate and produce lactic acid that helps preservation. In America, we most often encounter lactofermentation in sour or kosher pickles, as well as sauerkraut and kimchi, though kimchi is often fermented for much longer and much lower temperatures. Lacto-fermented pickles often have much gentler taste compared to the vinegary bite of a vinegar pickle and are probiotic. Though vinegar pickles are easier to heat treat and thus are more shelf stable. To complicate things further, if you've been to a Jewish deli in the States, you might have heard of half-sour pickles. These are pickles that are immersed in a brine like lacto-fermented pickle, but then refrigerated immediately and briefly. This halts fermentation, and so while they're delicious, they don't have the shelf life of a lacto-fermented or vinegar pickle. That sounds like the salt gherkins the emailer mentioned. If you want to learn more about pickles and how to make them, I highly recommend The Art of Fermentation and The Gnome Guide to Fermentation. Thanks for all the great podcasts, Sam in Chicago. Thank you, Sam, for your expert pickle knowledge. I hope that that's brought all of us here into some sort of agreement on what a pickle is.
Yeah.
But now, if you intend to enjoy said pickles, make sure you do it with a nice crusty bread so that you're safe from the pickle juice. The
two other pickle solutions here. One of them is, one person says, a pickle sauerkraut would just be relish, which I guess that's, okay. Got me. Pickles too. Pickles are loaded with sodium, and any method of dealing with a 2-liter jar in 2 days would turn you into a pillar of salt. The only answer that doesn't end in blood pressure medication is to batter and fry those bad boys and stick them in the freezer. Anything else and you take your life into your own hands. Fried pickles in the freezer is an interesting solution.
And you just
I wonder how they
up.
stand up to heat up. Do you know what I mean?
Right. I
like fried pickles.
It's got to be a toasting
fun
situation,
snack.
right? I guess you can refry them in the pan.
I guess you could.
I've become a big fan of refrying. Like that's become my go-to reheating food method for like wings and pizza.
Sure, that makes sense. Last thing here from Josh in London. Hey, everybody at Waypoint. In reference to the 2-liter of pickles discussion on episode 379, I recently came across a quote from an interview with Ursula K. Le Guin discussing changes she could make in her writing given the chance and thought it could be of use. Please see below. This is from someone asked Ursula K. Le Guin, who's a fantastic science fiction fantasy writer, just a fantastic writer in general. If you could make a change to anything you've written over the years, what would it be? And she responded by saying, in The Dispossessed, I would mention the communal pickle barrels at street corners in the big towns, restocked by whoever in the community has made or kept more pickles than they need. I knew about the free pickles all along, but never could fit them into my book, which is so funny to have this world detail that's like, oh yeah, in these communities, they have these big pickle barrels, communal pickle barrels, but just didn't find the way to write that detail into the world. So do that. We should all start communal pickle barrels. I'm sure that would be sanitary and safe.
Absolutely.
But I feel like we should do it. They're pickles.
They'll be fine. I wonder what happens if you mix lacto fermented pickles with vinegar pickles. What happens? I'm curious how this would work.
There's only one way to find out, Cado.
All right, experiment.
Gaming@vice.com is the email address. Please use the subject question so that it gets properly filtered, because otherwise it gets mixed in with stuff like this spam about doubling growth strategy and stimulating organizational vitality, and this media.
Also, those are important work
Ultraman
emails.
Thing. Very important work emails. Exactly. See, like,
could you forward me the stimulate growth strategy and unlock work synergy thing? I feel like
you need that for sure. For sure. See, there's like another Sonic one in here that I would not have seen if I didn't click through, but now we'll have to save that for another day because we've already gone too long. Thank you everyone for listening. We will be back later this week with more Waypoint Radio. You can find me on Twitter at @Austin_Walker. Follow everything we do, waypoint.vice.com, twitter.com/waypoint. Where can people find you, Cado?
At @A_Cado_ appears on Twitter.
Rob.
At Rob Zachney.
Patrick.
At Patrick Klepek.
All right. Thank you as always to Bowen for letting us use the track Miss You off the EP Pale Machine. Find out more about that. Waypoint.zone/BOEN. Until next time, and honestly beyond next time, fuck capitalism. Stay home.
All right.
No, the crust stayed on. The pod juice did not leak out.
They didn't leak out.
Let's do 27.
Ooh, I had to load the website as we were doing it. I was like, can I hit it? I'm not going to tell people that the website's loading. I'm just going to see if
You
I
got
can.
there.
I think it worked
You got
out.
there.
Come
Sounded
on,
good.
Comcast.
Pay you enough.